Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to continue from where we stopped in our last video. We solved example 1 and 2. In today's video, we'll continue from example 3 and example 4. So the example says, simplify a raised to the power 3 times b raised to the power 2 times c raised to the power 4 all over a times b times c raised to the power minus 2 when a is equals to 3, b equals to 1 over 8 and c is equals to 2. Remember, in our previous video, I gave you everything you need about the laws of indices, everything you need to know about the laws of indices that will help us to what? Solve this problem. For this example, we have two methods. So let's start. Solution. The first step is to what? The first method you can do, let's write method 1. Method 1. So the first method is to expand. You can expand all of them. It will now become what? A raised to the power 3, b raised to the power 2, and c raised to the power 4 all over what? A times b times c raised to the power what? 2. So now it will become what? A times A times A, because it's A raised to the power 3. Remember, this 3 is the index or the power, and this A is the base. And the index is telling us how many times we need to multiply our what? Base A. So that's how we got A times A times A. So moving on to the next, we have B squared, that's B raised to the power 2. So the 2 is telling us how many times we are going to times our base. So it will now be what? Times what? B times what? B. And similarly for C, C raised to the power 4, that means we will times C 4 times. Now be times what? C times C times C times what? C. So now be all over A times B. Then here we apply the what? Negative index, which states that anytime we see a negative number, we simply change it to what? A fraction, as is going to be 1 over c what? Square. So it will now be what? A times what? B times what? 1 over, to remove this negative, we bring back down our base, c square. But c square is the same thing as what? C times what? C. So let's do it direct. So it will now be what? From here, that's how we got that 1 all over c square. From here, minus 2. That's that's 1 over c square. So the same thing as what? C times what? Times what? C. Alright. So this is the first step. So now we can simply times A times B, can times it by 1 to get AB over C times C. So it will now become what? Equal to what? Then this one to be what? A times A times A times B times B times C times what? C times C times C all over A times 1, that's A, B times 1, that's B, all over C times C, that's C times C, right? So this can also be written as what? A times A times A times B times what? C times C times C times C divided by what? AB all over what? C times C. So this same thing here is the same thing as this, because the whole of the numerator is dividing the denominator. So we can write it like this. This method one is kind of long, but in the next method I'll make it very short for you. So if you prefer the method one, you use it. If you prefer the method two, you use it. So we'll have equals to what? A times A times A times B times what? B times C again times C. That's C is into 4, B into 2, A into 3. Now this division sign, note, to take note, the division sign will change to what? Multiplication sign, right? And the numerator will be flipped with the denominator to remove this division sign, right? So we now have what? Times C all over what? A times what? B. So now we can cancel out. If A here will cancel what? A here. And what? B here will cancel what? B here. So we'll be left with what? We'll be left with A times A times B times C times C times C times C times C times C. That's how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That is 6 times C times C times what? C times what? C times what? C, and the last one times what? C. So if we now substitute our values for A, B, and C, we have that what? We know that A was given to us as what? Equals to 3, and B was given to us as 1/8, and C was given to us as equals to 2. So we'll put in the values of A, B, and C into this place, So when we put them into this place, we'll have that 2, sorry, A is 3, right? 3 times 3 times 1/8 times 2, because C is equals to 2, right? From here, C is equals to 2 times 2 times 2 times what? 2 times what again? 2 times 2, and finally times 2. So what we did is we put in the values of A, B, and C into what we have here. So if we multiply, we have that 3 times 3 will give us what? 9. 2 times 2 will give us what? 4. 4 times 2 will give us what? 8. 8 times 2 will give us what? 16. 16 times 2 will give us what? 32. And 32 times 2 will give us what? 60 what? 4. So we'll have that we got 9 here, right? It will now be 9 times, we have 1/8 here, right? 1/8 times, we have 64, right? 64. So we can see cancel out here, because 8 into here will give us 1, and 8 into 64 will give us what? 8. So what will be left with will be what? 9 times what? 1 times what? 8. And we know that 9 times 1 is what? 9, and 9 times 8 is what? 72. So our answer will be what? Equals to what? 70 what? 2. So this method is simple but is long. So I'll show you another method that you can use to solve this same problem. So stay with me. The second method, so now we can just write therefore. Before we go to the second method, we can write therefore a raised to power 3, b raised to power 2 and c raised to power 4 all over a times b times c raised to power 2 minus 2 is equals to what? 70 what? 2, using our what? First method. So now for the second method, method 2, for method 2, let's write it here. Method 2 is very direct. Our question was what? A raised to power what? 3. Wait, right? A raised to power 3. B raised to b square. Let me write the question. A raised to power 3. B raised to power 2. And C raised to power 4. All over what? A times B times C raised to power minus 2. Say when what? When A equals to what? When A equals to 3, B equals to 1 over 8 and C equals to 2. So let's write it here. When A equals to what? 3, B equals to what? 1 over 8 and C equals to what? 2. So using the second method, we can simply apply our knowledge of the laws of indices and write that A raised to power 3. Before we do that, we know that when we have similar base, like A and A here, they are the same base, right? So we can simply say A is dividing A. A here is raised to power 1, A here is raised to power 3. Similarly, B and B, they are the same bases, right? And they are dividing. B raised to power 2, B raised to power 1. And here, C raised to power 4, C raised to power minus 2. And we say whenever we are dividing, we take the base. Let's say our base is A, because we're giving A. Then what? Subtract their powers. That is to be 3 minus 1, right? So we have A raised to power what? 3 minus what? 1. Similarly, times B raised to power what? 2 minus 1 times C raised to power 4 minus 2. 4 minus what? Minus what? 2. So this is what we are going to get. So if we now break it down, we'll have that A raised to power 3 minus 1 will give us what? 2, right? Times what? B, 2 minus 1 will give us 1, as B raised to power 1. Times what? C, 4 times minus 4 minus 2. Remember, I told you that when we have minus times what? Minus, it will give us what? Plus. When we have minus times plus, it will give us what? Minus. And when we have plus times plus, it will give us what? Plus. So here we have what? Minus times what? Minus. So minus times minus give us what? Plus. So 4 plus 2, that's what we have. That's to give us what? 4 what? Let me write it here. Plus 2 which is equals to what? 6. So it will now be c raised to the power what? 6. So now we can expand it. A raised to the power 2 is same thing as what? A times what? A. Then times what? B raised to the power 1. We said from our previous video that any base or number raised to the power 1 will give us itself. So b raised to the power 1 is itself, that's b, times c raised to the power 6, that's what? C times c times c times what? C times what? C, and finally times what? C. So now we can what? Put in our what? Values for A, B, and C. So for A, we're giving A as 3, B as 1/8, and C as 2. So it will now become what? A, that's 2, that's 3, sorry, times what? 3, times B, that's 1/8, B is 1/8, 1/8, times C, that's times 2, times what? 2, times 2, times 2. How many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 what? And 6. So 3 times 3 will give us what? 9, like we did before. 1/8. 2 times 2 will give us what? 4. 4 times 2, 8. 8 times 2, 16. 16 times 2, 32. And 32 times 2, 64. So if you notice, we are almost getting to the end of our solution. So it's now be 9 times what? 1/8 times what? 64. So it will now give us what? 8 into here is 1, 8 into here is 8. So it will now be 9 times 1 times 8. That's 9 times 1 times 8, which will now give us what? 9 times 1 is 9, and 9 times 8 is 72. So our final answer will be what? 72. So we can now write therefore A raised to the power 3, B raised to the power 2, and C raised to the power 4 all over A times B times C raised to the power minus 2 is equals to what? 72. So if we check our second method, that's method 2, if we check the final answer, we got what? 72, right? And if you go back to the first method, which is method 1, this one, method 1, we know that our final answer was also what? 72. So we are correct. So let's move to the next example. The next what? Example. That's example what? 4. So example 4, we were given what? X raised to the power 2, y raised to the power 3, x raised to the power 2 times y raised to the power 3 plus x times y raised to the power 2 all over x times y. This same thing can be likened to, watch closely, can be likened to what? 2 plus what? 2 all over what? 2, where 2 is this, the other 2 here is this, and the last 2 here is our denominator. So if we break this down, we have that 2 plus 2 is equals to what? 4. 4 over what? 2, which is same thing as what? 2. But watch, there's another way we can do this to get same answer as 2 here. Watch oh, watch closely. 2 plus 2 over 2 can be rewritten as what? 2 over 2 plus 2 what? Over 2. So if you write it like this, 2 over 2 plus 2 over 2, it will now be equals to what? 2 here will give us 1, 2 here will give us what? 1, 2 here will give us 1, 2 here will give us what? 1. So we now have that 2 over 2 plus 2 over 2 equals to 1 over 1 plus what? 1 over 1. 1 divided by 1 is what? 1. 1 divided by 1 here is 1, that is plus 1, which will still give us what? 2. So either way, either we go direct 2 plus 2, 4, divided by 2 and get our answer, or we what? Separate them, that's 2 over 2 plus 2 over 2, divide again and get 1 plus 1 and get our answer. So if we apply this principle here, we have that this can be rewritten as what? X square y cube over xy plus x y square over x what? Y, just like we did in this place. So we have separated them, you see. So the next thing here is to do is to what? Expand, then cancel out. So if we expand it, we have that x square will be what? X times what? X times what? Y. X times x, how do we get x times x? Because we are given x raised to the power 2 now. This 2 is the index or the power, telling us how many times we multiply our what? Base x. That's how we got x times x. Then y raised to the power 3 is similar thing, the index or the power, telling us how many times we multiply our base y. That's 3 times. So it will now be y times what? Y times what? Y. All over what? X times what? Y. Plus, don't forget the plus, x times what? Y squared, that's y times y, all over what? X times y, because xy is same thing as x times y, xy is same thing as x times y. So now we can cancel out, x will cancel out x, y will cancel out y here. Similarly, x here will cancel out x, and y will cancel out y here. So what we'll be left with is what? X times y times y. That's x times what? Y times what? Y. Then here we'll be left with what? Plus, here we'll be left with only y. So we are left with x times y, and there with only y. We'll further break it down. So we'll now have x. We know that whenever we are multiplying the same base, we simply add their what? Powers. Y times y is same thing as y raised to the power 1, and y here is same thing as y raised to the power 1. So it will now be x times what? Y. You add their powers because they have common base y. It will now be 1 plus 1, then plus y plus y. So we now have what? X. Y, 1 plus 1 will be what? 2. That's y raised to the power 2. Y raised to the power 2 plus our y that is here. So this is our final answer. But if you want to see what, break it down. That's because y here is common between the both of them. So you can now say equals to what? Y here into what? X y plus what? 1. Very simple, right? Yes, very simple. So this is the first method we can use to solve this example. But there's a faster way to solve it. Let me show you now. Stay with me. So using the second method, we can say that, let me write the question first. This is the question here. So I want to use a method 2, a faster method. For this method 2, x raised to the power 2 y raised to the power 3 plus what? x y raised to the power 2 over what? X y. So if we want to use the second method, all right. So method 2, in this method, it's very straightforward. There's no much thing to do. You just what? First of all, you separate them like we did in the previous one. We have x square y cube all over what? X what? Y plus xy square all over what? X what? Y. So this here is same thing as this here. So now from our laws of what? Indices, we know that the base here x and here x, they are what? The same, and they are dividing. So we simply what? Subtract their powers, and here too y and y, they are the same. So we simply what? Subtract their powers or index. X here is raised to the power 1 and y here is raised to the power 1. So we have that x raised to the power 2 minus 1. That's from here. Collect that common base x raised to the power 2 minus 1. That's how we got this thing here. Times y raised to the power 3 minus 1 plus same thing here, x and x, they are similar base, so you write it down. X here is raised to the power 1, x here is raised to the power what? 1. So it will now be 1 what? Minus what? 1. Y here is raised to the power 1, and they have similar base, y here, times what? Y raised to the power what? 2 minus 1, right? That's 2 minus what? 1. So you see how simple this step is. So we'll break it down. We now have x raised to the power 2 minus 1, that's 1, times what? Y raised to the power 3 minus 1, that's 2, plus x raised to the power 1 minus 1, that's 0, that's x raised to the power 0, and y 2 minus 1 is what? 1, that's y raised to the power 1. So if you look at this, we know that x raised to the power 0 is same thing as what? 1, and we know that x raised to the power 1 is same thing as itself, that's x, right? So we can now write that x raised to the power 1 is x times what? Y square plus what? X raised to the power 0 is 1. From our previous video when we explain the what? 0 law. So this is it here. Any number raised to the power 0 is 1. Any base raised to the power 0 is 1. And here, any base or number raised to the power 1, it is itself. So now be y times what? Y. So we'll now get that our final answer be what? X what? Y square plus 1 times y, y. So this can be our final answer, but if you want to further break it down by factorizing, we will now have that y is common between both of them. So you bring out y into what? X. Y divided by this will give us y plus y divided by y will give us what? 1. So this is our final answer. So this is the method 2. So let's check our answers. See the answer, y into what? Xy plus 1, right? Or this, if you want to keep it here without simplifying. Let's check the first method. The same thing, y into xy plus 1, or this. So if you enjoyed this video, please kindly support our channel by liking it, sharing to your friends that you want to be good in maths, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so we can keep producing more engineering maths videos for you. And in case you don't understand any concept or you're not familiar with the laws of indices, we have made a video that can help you you can go and check the playlist on engineering maths. We already have a video that can help you so you can understand these concepts better. But if you've already done that and you've watched and you're still having doubt, please don't be shy. Simply ask questions in the comment section and I will respond swiftly. Thank you and see you in our next video.